Hey everybody, Brandon Lewis here. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm sorry I got a little carried away with the tumbler and I seem to have had a slight accident. But you know what? When it comes time to deliver the news, you can't let little things like that stop you. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you people who are of Irish American heritage. This is a great day to celebrate the wonderful things that the Irish culture has brought to the United States of America. And for all the rest of us, it's just a really good reason to drink a ton of beer. Bringing you the conservative news break a little early because I'm about to go out the door and go camping, and I'm totally excited. There's no better way that I can think of to spend St. Patrick's Day than out in the woods drinking beers with my buddies, which is exactly what I intend to do. So glad that you are here. This is the Tennessee Conservative News Break. I am Brandon Lewis, and we bring conservative news stories to viewers like you without the liberal media bias, and we just give it to you straight. I hope you enjoy it. If you have yet to subscribe to our email newsletter where we go into these stories more in depth, you can click on TennesseeConservativeNews.com and click the subscribe button, and you can easily get there. You can also go and support us, and when you do, you will get two proud Tennessee conservative bumper stickers for any amount. Put these on your car. People will know that you are a conservative and that you support the things that conservatives care about. And also, what is this? If you give $25 or more as a recurring contribution, you'll get this proud Tennessee conservative tumbler, a gold coin. It is St. Patrick's Day. Do you believe that? Holy cow. These are lucky tumblers. In addition to bringing you tons of luck, when you give more than $25 in a recurring contribution, you'll also be more virile. You'll sleep better. If you have backaches or moderate to severe eczema, this thing's going to just wipe it right out. And we'll send that puppy to you. These statements have not been approved by Governor Bill Lee, nor is a lot of your freedoms for the last 12 months either. But you know what? Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. So moving right along to state stories. So we're going to hit the first one here, which I know that many of you have been emailing me and private messaging me about what's going to happen with our gun rights with Joe Biden being in office. So here's some good news. Constitutional carry is one step closer to becoming law. Tennessee's constitutional carry bill, which would allow eligible citizens, which I imagine is probably you, to carry a handgun without a permit, is closer to becoming law after being advanced in the General Assembly. Constitutional carry creates an exception to the offense of unlawful carrying of a firearm if a person meets qualifications for an enhanced handgun carry permit, lawfully possesses a handgun, and is in a place that the person has a right to be. And it revises other firearms statutes. So the legislation introduced by Governor Bill Lee would apply to Tennesseans 21 and over. So most of you, I assume, out there watching probably are. And members of the armed forces, including those honorably discharged, would be eligible even if under the age of 21. The bill also comes with other restrictions, which would significantly increase the penalties for unlawfully possessing a firearm, including a mandatory sentence for those who steal a firearm. I agree with that one. And the House of Representatives is currently looking at the sister bill, and it will be heard by Finance, Ways, and Means Committee on March 17th. That puppy will probably pass. Next story on the Tennessee side, statewide, new legislation aims to increase transparency of foreign influences in colleges in Tennessee. Hopefully, they can do that and get a lot of this cultural Marxism out of there as well, and a lot of this critical race theory and everything else that they peddle in higher education with our tax dollars. But this is a good start as well. Governor Bill Lee introduced a Transparency in Foreign Investment Act on Tuesday. The legislation would increase the level of transparency required for a foreign investment in college and university campuses across the state. I don't know why they're allowed to do it to begin with, to be honest. Public higher education institutions would be required to release information about gifts and contracts from foreign sources. In addition, they would be required to refuse gifts and contracts that pose a credible national security threat. I wonder who's going to pick that up. According to A statement from the governor's office: no details have been released at this time to define what that would be considered a qualifying security threat. Public colleges and universities would also be required to submit a disclosure report, and the report would be reviewed by the Tennessee Comptroller of the Treasury. Another major component of the bill would also be to restrict colleges and universities in Tennessee from creating controversial Confucius Institute programs. I hope so. That and a lot of other things. I mean, higher education is struggling big time to deliver on the investment for kids that go there with jobs. They loaded up with debt. I can remember when I worked in the financial aid office when I was young in college, and they would say, don't worry, honey, take out the maximum amount of student loan, and if you don't use it, you can pay it back. And it's criminal the way these colleges saddle these kids with debt that can never be paid back. I think that probably be a bigger thing to tackle than foreign influence, although anything that will reform these educational institutions, which are often hotbeds for terrible liberal ideology. People send their kids there and they come out completely different than what they thought. And we got big issues in our public education institutions in Tennessee, and I hope that the General Assembly and the governor will tackle more of this. Next story. Lee says Tennesseans don't need its share of American Rescue Plan funding. Tennessee is set to receive a combined $35 billion in different forms of relief from the $1.9 trillion federal stimulus package that came out of your pocket, by the way, signed by President Joe Biden. But Governor Bill Lee says the state doesn't need the money. The $35 billion includes 1,400 stimulus checks for every Tennessean, extended unemployment benefits. That's going to get people back to work. Additional relief for businesses, money for K through 12 and higher education, direct relief for local governments. We didn't need it, Lee said during a recent host by the Beacon Center and the Millennium Debt Foundation. There are 7 states in America who had positive economic growth since April 2020, and Tennessee is one of them. And that's because of a history of being fiscally responsible in a state. And so, this relief bill, a lot of what it did is Joe Biden is giving handouts to these state and local governments that are just so poorly mismanaged, like, for example, Nashville. Mayor Cooper has done a terrible job of managing the finances of that city. That guy should be recalled. They tried to recall them, and because I think a bunch of shenanigans there at the election commission, that didn't happen. There are plenty of signatures to do it. He has ran that city into the ground. He's ran the businesses into the ground, and I hope that Nashville realizes there are consequences for voting for socialists, and they're living with it. So a lot of this funding that has come in from the Biden administration has really been to bail out these poorly managed states. And the thing that's so bad in cities is that they take money from well-ran states that produce all this revenue and citizens in well-ran states, and they redistribute it to these crap hole states that can't get their act together financially because they think that there's zero consequences for constantly spending everybody else's money. Most people will spend other people's money. If you will mail me $1 billion, I will spend it. Probably a lot of it frivolously if you give me that much. But when you have to earn it, you do different things, don't you? All right. American Rescue Plan, this is national, to provide states 116 times their revenue losses. Many states and local governments that reported budget surpluses last year will still receive billions of dollars in federal aid. The Tax Foundation analysis found the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Act brings the total amount to the federal government as proposed during the coronavirus pandemic to $6 trillion, or a little more than a quarter of the nation's annual gross domestic product. This sounds like a fantastic idea for all you math majors out there. And looking at some of the individual state numbers, Arkansas, for example, will receive aid payments that are 8,210% higher than its revenue decrease last year. This is government at work. They can't solve age-old problems. Can't solve them. They can't solve age-old problems in healthcare. They can't solve age-old problems in education. They can't run the post office, which puts little objects in boxes. Little boxes, little objects. Can't do it. Loses money. Can't get it there on time. Meanwhile, FedEx and UPS record profits. The federal government ruins everything it touches, and here it is with a one-size-fits-all plan, which is what government typically does, trying to give a shiznit ton of money to people that don't need it. Moving on. The state budget had a $20 million, this is Arkansas, $20 million shortfall compared to 2019, but will get more than $2.8 billion in combined relief payments. New Jersey gets 4,365% more money than it lost, and New York will get 1,007% more. Great. More news from the fantastic Joe Biden administration. You know what I've not seen a lot of here lately? I've not seen any liberals posting on social media about the fantastic job that Joe Biden is doing. I've not seen them say, "Oh, what a wonderful president. How inspiring," as he hides in the White House. Kamala tell him, what bill he's signing. Well, it's just a few $1 trillion, Joe. Don't worry about it. And it hasn't had a press conference. He's, is hiding. He's hiding in his basement of the White House probably, and he needs to get out there and lead. And spending tons of money and redistributing it for political favors isn't a good way to lead, but that appears to be what this administration wants to do. Biden's oil and gas ban undermines New Mexico's ability to safeguard its economy and the environment. Cabinet Secretary Sarah Cottrell Probst writes, I'm not going to say that again, that's just too complicated, that Biden's order has resulted in on-the-ground uncertainties that undermine our ability to safeguard New Mexico's economy and environment. Approximately 55% of oil and gas wells in New Mexico are drilled on federal lands, particularly in the Permian Basin. By contrast, the Texas side of the Permian Basin is largely private land and therefore unimpacted. I bet they love that in New Mexico from a competition standpoint by the federal actions. We have seen rigs depart New Mexico for Texas simply because of the uncertainty caused by the order. No crap. Business does not like uncertainty. Investment does not like uncertainty. People, when they want to put their money into things or to hire, people hate uncertainty. Big companies, small companies, doesn't matter, hate uncertainty. And the Biden administration has done nothing but inject uncertainty through the way it messages and the way through its legislating. And all of these liberals and these Democrats and these leftists in Congress. And they never could figure out why Trump had a magic wand. Well, there are certain rules in economics, and if you follow those rules, your economy prospers. If you ignore those rules, your economy suffers or stagnates. And I think we're going to look at least 2 years of stagnation, if not 4, and it doesn't have to be this way, but it's going to be, I believe. Currently, New Mexico has the 4th highest unemployment in the U.S. I'm sure New Mexico loves Joe Biden's job-killing bills out there. Prior to Biden's order, New Mexico already had the fewest energy jobs it has had in a decade, and numbers are expected to continue to decline unless a waiver is granted. Well, maybe he'll grant it so he thinks he can pick up some electoral votes. Who knows? Locally, COVID-19 in Hamilton County schools 1 year later. A lot can happen in a year. As of yesterday, March 16th, it was 1 year exactly since Hamilton County Schools closed its doors and transitioned to remote learning for what they originally thought would only be 2 weeks. I don't know. I'm not buying any of that anymore. I don't think any of these people that put this stuff out there thought it was going to be 2 weeks, but I'm sorry. The benefit of the doubt time has ran out here. Due to the appearance of COVID-19 in Tennessee, the student and staff did not return to school buildings for the rest of the year. And according to Superintendent Dr. Brian Johnson, who is remarkably incompetent, the way we approach educating our students has changed forever. Really, Brian? How's it changed? Are you going to fail more? You going to fail more, bud? That's the only thing I can think of. The schools were open 84 days of in-person learning for the fall semester. But as the holidays approached, the entire country saw a surge in COVID-19 cases. We were forced to transition to remote learning for all, Johnson said. Let me ask you a question. You educate kids, right? Kids that are not at risk of contracting coronavirus and by all accounts really don't even spread it. And these educators and these people on boards of schools that look at coronavirus cases and they determine whether the kids should be in school or not are morons. There would be no greater relevance If you looked at how many people had fallen and broken their leg in their 70s, or how many people had had a heart attack, or how many people had a stroke, or how many people had had a car accident, if you would not use that data to determine if kids should be in school or not. You know why? Because that data has nothing to do with kids. It has a lot to do with virtue signaling between parents and culturally and all that stuff, the things that people got caught up in. But all this nonsense, this teacher union driven nonsense, this bureaucratic government school nonsense, who got hurt? Kids. They were already barely reading at grade level, only 1 out of 3. Now we're going to stick them at home in front of a computer screen with parents who have lost jobs because they can't work. And this is the nonsense that this guy has to peddle here. Now that COVID cases have lessened, as if that had anything to do with anything, I hope this guy gets fired. I hope this guy gets fired. I hope the Board of Education, I hope the County Commission, and everybody who went along with this pays a huge political and financial consequence because they did the kids an injustice. Now that COVID cases have lessened, Hamilton County schools are transitioned away from using the phase tracker to dictate the school schedule. The phase tracker. How about the Can the Kids Read and Do Math tracker? Maybe y'all bastards should start using that. Maybe that would be a good thing to use. I can put the whole system together for you in about 5 hours and tell you what you need to focus on so these kids can read. Johnson says that in-person learners can be in school 5 days a week for the rest of the school year. Somebody throw this guy a ticket tape parade. He's doing such a fantastic job. Now that students are back in the classroom, the focus has turned to addressing learning loss. What? Learning loss from not being in school? Who would have thought this would be a consequence of all this nonsense? Apparently, anybody with 2 neurons to rub together. Now that students are back in the classroom, the focus of HCS has turned to addressing learning loss and low literacy rates among students. Well, you could have addressed that 5, 10, 15 years ago in public schools. So, those are our headlines. I wish they were more cheerful, except for some of the things that are going on in the Tennessee legislature and a few things that Bill Lee is probably trying to do to make up a little bit of lost political capital due to his mismanagement of coronavirus, and probably the legislature trying to get together and do something because they sat on their thumbs the entire time civil liberties were taken the last 12 months, other than a few rays of sunshine there. On the national and local level, it's been pretty rough. Okay, this is a rough newscast, but you know what? It's St. Patrick's Day, baby. It's St. Patrick's Day. We found a gold coin in the tumbler. It's only going to get better from here. And remember, if you have not signed up for the newsletter, emailed newsletter, go there, sign up for that puppy. And if you're a conservative, and I know you know other conservatives, right? If you're watching this, you know other conservatives, your buddy down the street, a friend you went to college with, folks that you text message with. Send them a text to TennesseeConservativeNews.com and say, hey, did you know that this thing was there? Why don't you subscribe? Why don't you keep up with it? They've also got a good social media platform. They'll give you the news. They'll tell it to you like it is. And if you want us to stay around, have you ever gone to a restaurant or found a fantastic band that you absolutely loved, and you went and saw them and you thought, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's exactly what I like, and then they break up or go out of business? Well, that's why we ask people for contributions, so that that doesn't happen to the Tennessee Conservative. If you give any amount, we'll send you 2 proud Tennessee Conservative bumper stickers and a directory of all your state and local, not state and local, but your state officials in your House, in the Senate, and the governor's office. And if you give $25 or more as a recurring contribution, we will send you this proud Tennessee Conservative tumbler. I cannot promise that a gold coin will be in there, but I can promise you that if you drink this and really get limbered up, you can probably run a 4-minute mile. Maybe 4 times 3 or 4, but you'll probably run a 4-minute mile, and it will also cure insomnia and trichinosis as well. And those statements have not been evaluated by any governing board. But I think if you believe hard enough that this will do it. So if you can believe that there are 42 different genders and sexes, I'm sure if you believe hard enough, this puppy can make almost anything happen. So thank you so much for tuning in to the Conservative News Update. I'm Brandon Lewis. I hope you have a very safe, fun, and fantastic St. Patrick's Day. I'm going to be out in the woods camping. I hope that the severe weather does not blow me away. So if I'm not in here on Monday, you will know that I met my demise by either tornado or bear. So stay tuned. There will be gnashing of teeth and weeping as we do not have the conservative news break Thursday or Friday, but I'll be back on Monday. And all our published content will come out on our social media feeds and online just like it always does. So go to the website, you can read it. And we also have posted some interesting videos there that I hope that you'll watch. Brandon Lewis here with the Tennessee Conservative. I love spending this time with you. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. Scarlin, Mike, Steve, and the rest.